Israel is the most vicious type of settler colonialism. Everything that is wrong with the human civilization, Israel has mastered and institutionalized it.
Dr. Maung Zarni is a Burmese genocide scholar. He spent the last 9 days visiting both Israel and Palestine as part of an interfaith delegation. He sat down with me to discuss his observations upon having meeting a wide range of Israelis and Palestinians to discuss the current situation. Can you give us a kind of a bird's eye view of what you took away from the relationship between Israelis and Palestinians?
I'm still reeling from the shock of being there for 9 days, and then on the 10th day we left the country. I've never seen a situation where genocidal paradigm or policies and practices are so creatively pursued and so uh, you know total. In other words, what I've discovered there, it's what I would call a vast ecosystem of genocidal methodologies with a comparative understanding of different genocides in history as well as in different geographies, like Cambodia. I spent like a 3+ years conducting mass grave tours at different killing fields, when I was trying to influence the influencers in the country, in Burma. I came from Burma, or Myanmar, if you want to call it, where the Buddhist majority, were cheerleading and supporting the Burmese military's, full-scale genocide of Rohingya Muslims. And I have studied extensively Nazi ideology, the methods they use, Nazi genocide, personalities involved, right? Um, the dynamics within the German society. I've also traveled across Bosnia Herzegovina, where multiple genocidal killings took place. If you come in a situation like Palestine, and the land and is administratively and from a security perspective divided into different areas, walls, checkpoints, deliberately, you know differential or discriminatory practice of very, very unequal resource distributions, resources that are essential to life or to sustain life, like water, land, access to food systems, right? And then you've got, the complete impunity, uh, that settlers, basically land thieves. Yeah. The settler is a very euphemistic term. We're talking about land thieves, right? Sponsored by the state of Israel as a matter of policy, protected by what Netanyahu would call the most moral army, the Israeli Defense Force. Local call it Israeli Oppressive Force. A friend of mine, a genocide scholar in Australia, called the IDF Israeli Death Force. This ecosystem of genocidal practices, uh, you know, which include, you know, systems of apartheid, colonial occupation, um, racist supremacist institutions and judicial system, extremely racist or genocidally racist ideology that permeates across different sectors of Israeli society. So this is a complete genocide that is even beyond what Nazi Germany had embodied. I say this because extreme sadism and torture methods. Right? That's straight from Inquisition. Genocide as essentially a process with the singular purpose of destroying a nation or a population under occupation by the occupier. The checkpoints, The purpose of checkpoints isn't simply that Israel needs to defend itself and needs to feel safe or safer. The checkpoints are set up to make life unpredictable. You can't really plan. Like you drive to, you okay, you have a business meeting about 2 miles away from your home. You you drive towards a checkpoint. That checkpoint's closed. You've got to go around, spend like 45 minutes or like a 1 hour. That's like your bottleneck. We see like graffitied walls with sniper towers. It's like a Banthamite prisons, really, with panopticons. Where like as if like you are being watched 24/7 from all angles. There might just be just one sniper sitting up there, right? And but that's just like a really snapshots of like walls and sniper tower. If you take a total length of the wall, you realize this is like you know 810-kilometer long wall. Yeah, and that wall is really established to create this vast prison camp. You can go about your business there until the IDF arrives unannounced and like pick up your son or daughter. You're gone, right? And but in 2005, the United Nations Commission on the Wall investigated the wall and its impact on the sustainability of life for Palestinians. And what they discovered is that the wall is a major driver or factor behind production of mass poverty among this population. We're talking about millions, right? And then the other element I found is what you know the the father of genocide Raphael Lemkin, who actually coined the term genocide, called racial underfeeding in populations or nations under occupation. Palestinians are not just simply occupied spatially, their lives are occupied, right? I took a Palestinian public bus, a bus meant for Palestinian, and at checkpoints, like, everyone, old, young, babies, infants, toddlers, every one of us, including foreigners like myself, and, we were asked to, we're basically ordered. We were not requested. We were ordered to get off the bus and show ID. Queue up in front of like a team of IDF soldiers, anti-terror units. Whoever, whatever, local police, different uniforms, like all fully armed with automatic the submachine guns. And little babies with mother, approach the Israeli IDF person, you know, and everyone comply fully. And I noticed their eyes cast downward, and they feel they had no other option but to comply. What I find shocking is that in addition to the Israeli state and its policies making Palestinians life extremely difficult in terms of their access to land and food system and land confiscation, all that, water. Water is, in a desert like situation, water is so crucial. There's a museum in one of the refugee camps next to the wall, called Banksy Museum. Banksy, the graffiti artist from England. There is a comparative cross section of two different types of pipes that were used to supply water to Palestinian population and to the Israeli population, right? And and the per capita, per household water allowance for Israeli, including settlers, is about 400 liter per household per day, as opposed to, you know, maybe like 40 liters for a Palestinian household. This is a permanently established system of deliberately under supplying life's essentials to Palestinian population. So all of these put together, you've got like the classic genocidal slaughter, mass extermination in very short time, right? Plus diseases, right? And that have put Palestinian life at extreme dangers. The preventable diseases, destruction of health system. That is a classic genocidal extermination in Gaza. And then you've got this classic apartheid in certain parts of the occupied territories. And then you've got classic colonial occupation and so-called pacification campaign. So there, you know, different major elements of previous historical crimes, apartheid, crimes against humanity, war crimes, settler colonialism, erasure of memory, names, right? And when you see this as part of a total whole, just different inventive and specific methodologies, but with the singular purpose to turn this slogan, land without people. So this was a slogan from the very get-go of the Zionist movement. And that slogan is being turned into a self-fulfilling prophecy using this ecosystem of various genocidal methods. Different subpopulations of the Palestinian are subject to different types of repression and destruction, full destruction, partial destruction, potential destruction, and coming destruction. This could be, Palestine could turn into a something like a Rwanda situation. All of a sudden, the IDF may not be the main killer. You know, the settler violence is unleashed. Now Israeli settlers are all armed. They're using the settlers as the spearhead of Israeli violence outside of Gaza. And of course, like in Gaza, is the IDF. That is the spearhead of the genocide with American weapons, American monies, and European Union money, the Britain even. This is the most comprehensive and complete genocide. It's not just single acts, but if you have to look at them, look different policies and practices of Israel as being interconnected with the singular purpose of taking the land without people. It has everything, all the elements of historical crimes that we witness in settler colonial genocides across North America, Latin America, Australia, right, South, and Africa. Everything is there, man. Israel is the embodiment of all elements of crimes, with the exception of slave trade and slavery, yeah, that we have witnessed the Christian Europe committed over the last 500 years against the people of color around the world. Israel is the worst form of, genocidal regime. That's why, Professor Noam Chomsky, who used to live here in his youth in the 1950s in kibbutz, right? He finally said Israel is the most vicious type of settler colonialism. Everything that is wrong with the human civilization, Israel has mastered and institutionalized it.
Tell us about the actual interactions that you had with Palestinians and Israelis. So you spent time in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. Were you able to meet with Palestinians? And if so, what was their feelings and attitudes towards the situation that we're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I had talked to um, different Palestinians from a cross section of the Palestinian society, right? Like kids in refugee camps, the the shop owners, university students, NGO activists, faith leaders, from Lutheran Church, like other Christian denominations, and I also talked to we visited El Aqsa Mosque, and to talk to the prayers there, if in West Bank, what strikes me is that although West Bank is nominally under the Palestinian Authority administration, the the common view is that Palestinian authorities are at best completely impotent, to protect the Palestinian population there, at best, and at worst, Palestinian authorities is really uh, serving as a local controller of Palestinian people, their own people, for Israel. I don't make these words up. That's like, when you sit down and, chat with them, the locals say Palestinian authorities controlling us for Israel. That's rather damning. And then, and someone like even said, oh, we're under double occupation. I mean, that I was shocked, and what we're looking at is like, basically like a Nazi Germany like situation, right? Because like people, the Western media and all the politicians and even the Israeli people, yeah, they're blaming everything on Netanyahu, but Netanyahu is riding the beast of a thoroughly Zionized or Zionist society. The way Israeli talked about Palestinian. I struck up conversations with fellow passengers in Tel Aviv on a tram or buses, and they would say, Palestinian people, oh, they're miserable people. They're in deep poverty. They're not the problem, but it's their leaders. And then it turned out that that's the standard narrative that Israel has circulated, right? Like, okay, that don't say anything racist about the Palestinians, just focus on the organizations and politicians, right? But they don't talk about 810-kilometer long wall that has massively impoverished and dispossessed and also settlements, right? Like the displacement, the use of terror, right? None of this is, insofar as the Israelis' public opinion is concerned, from my reading, my limited interaction, Israeli public feels they are moral. And I think that one woman used the term moral code. Well, Netanyahu had broken the moral code. I was like, well, like, what kind of moral code Netanyahu broke? I was like, well, he needed to save the, hostages, rescue them. Or like, we don't leave in our Jewish or Israeli Jewish society, we don't leave our people in distress or in need or at risk alone. We have to do it. But their sense of moral obligation does not extend to any Palestinian that they have terrorized for the last 75 years, from whom they have taken land, you know, or like whose villages they destroyed. The last count, like, one of the local historians told me, the last count of the villages destroyed in Nakba is 609. And 11 Palestinian cities were depopulated, right? This is classic Hitler, right? Depopulation. The policies of the Israeli authorities is to make Jerusalem majority Jewish enclave, excluding the it's or like erasing Jerusalem's multi-faith, multi-ethnic, multi-racial, inter-civilizational tradition. The Jews, the Muslims, and the Christians of different denominations, right? It's a holy site, but they want to make it, you know, ex- almost exclusively Zionist, because like we cannot conflate Zionism with Judaism. There are so many like Jewish people who feel extremely offended by the fact that Israel is committing this or set up this ecosystem of genocidal methods in their name. Land without people. When they knew there were like 95% of the population there was native, like Arabs, Palestinians of different religion, even including the Jewish population, right? There. And so I think what we are seeing is Israel's pursuit of uh, its singular overarching project of taking the land without the people. I've never seen this level of terroristic and sadistic violence. Israel systemically and systematically cheating the international law.
You spent 9 days in Palestine. You were able to speak with Palestinians in different parts of both Israel and Palestine. What was the message that you think they wanted the world to hear?
Well, they want, first and foremost, they want to stop the genocidal onslaught in Gaza. It's going on for 11 months, right? And that's the most immediate, because everyone's affected, although they're like, 100 or 200 kilometers away from Gaza, they are still affected by, what they witness as their fellow Palestinian being essentially exterminated, yeah, by airstrikes and diseases and all this stuff, right? And and secondly, they want Israel to comply with the International Court of Justice that, advisory ruling, not just once, twice, that the occupation is totally against international law. Israel needs to, remove all the settlements. In other words, Israel needs to take 750,000 or close to 800,000, land thieves, you know, euphemistically described as settlers from Palestinian land, right? And then Palestinians are not talking about, all right, let's go back to, one Palestine. Well, okay, maybe like that may be, what some people advocate as one Palestine, right? And but I don't see, with the level of dehumanization, with the level of hatred and disgust, and the low opinion that Israeli public hold their cohabitants, the Palestinians, I don't see reconciliation, in a single state. It has to be two state. But of course, like, but I'm just an outsider. Who am I to say what's best for them? But insofar as they're concerned, they want the end to occupation. They want to dismantle the wall. They want to dismantle the system of checkpoints. They don't want to be under Israeli occupation. That's been for 57 years, since 1967. Simple. So what Palestinians want? Immediate ceasefire in Gaza, end to occupation, yeah, and withdrawal of, nearly 1 million, land thieves, land thieving, you know, Israeli communities off their soil. Simple.